June 23, 1944, Belarus, Eastern Front, 0300 hours. In the darkness before dawn, more than 2,400 Soviet cannons break the silence. The roar is so intense that German soldiers 15 kilometers away feel the earth trembling beneath their feet. General Gotthard Heinrici, commander of the Fourth Army, awakens at his command post near Mogilev. He already knows what that sound means. What he doesn't know is that he's about to witness the most complete destruction of a German formation in the entire war. 3 years earlier, almost to the day, Adolf Hitler had launched Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union. Now, in an act of deliberate poetic justice, Joseph Stalin orders the start of Operation Bagration, named after the Russian general who fought against Napoleon. The objective? To completely destroy the German Army Group center and liberate Belarus. What will happen in the following 5 weeks will change the course of the war more dramatically than D-Day in Normandy. Strategic context. June 1944. While the world watches the Allied landings in Normandy, Stalin prepares something much larger in the east. The German Army Group Center, commanded by Field Marshal Ernst Busch, occupies a salient position that extends deep into Soviet territory. They are 800,000 men, distributed across 4 armies: the 3rd Panzer Army, the 4th Army, the 9th Army, and the 2nd Army. Busch is a convinced Nazi, known for his fanatical loyalty to Hitler. His orders are clear: hold the fortresses designated by the Führer at any cost. No retreats, no elastic maneuvers, only resistance to the death. The problem is that facing him are 2.5 million Soviet soldiers. Marshal Georgy Zhukov and General Alexander Vasilevsky have designed the most ambitious operation of the Red Army to date. 4 Soviet fronts will attack simultaneously: the First Baltic Front under the command of General Ivan Bagramyan, the Third Belarusian Front of Ivan Chernyakhovsky, the Second Belarusian Front of Georgy Zakharov, and the First Belarusian Front commanded by Konstantin Rakovsky. The numerical superiority is overwhelming: 2.5 million Soviet soldiers against 800,000 Germans, 5,200 tanks against 900, 5,300 aircraft against 1,350. But numbers aren't everything. The Germans have repeatedly demonstrated they can defend against superior forces. What makes Bagration different is the maskirovka, the Soviet art of military deception taken to its maximum expression. The perfect deception. For weeks, the Soviets have executed a masterful disinformation campaign. General Reinhard Gehlen, German intelligence chief for the Eastern Front, is convinced that the main attack will come in Ukraine toward the Romanian oil fields. All indicators point there. What Gehlen doesn't know is that each of those indicators has been carefully planted. In Belarus, the Soviets move their armies only at night. Tanks advance with engines off, towed by tractors to avoid leaving fresh track marks. Radio communications are forbidden. Everything is coordinated through messengers. When they build bridges over rivers, they do so underwater, invisible from the air. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the Soviets constantly transmit false orders. Wooden tanks are deployed in open fields. Fictitious supply depots are built where the Luftwaffe can photograph them. Colonel Bogdan Kobulov of the NKVD personally supervises the deception operation. Years later, he will recall, "We weren't hiding an army. We were hiding 4 complete armies. And it worked, beyond our most optimistic expectations." On June 20, 3 days before the attack, Gehlen presents his final assessment to Hitler. The enemy has no capacity for a major offensive in Belarus. Their reserves are committed in Ukraine. It is the most costly intelligence error of the war. The first blow, June 23rd, 0500 hours. After 2 hours of artillery bombardment, the Soviet infantry advances. These are not the disorganized human waves of 1941. These are veteran soldiers, supported by tanks, mobile artillery, and close air support. They have learned from 3 years of brutal war. Lieutenant Helmut Popst of the 252nd Infantry Regiment describes the moment in his diary. The sky turned red, not with dawn, but with the fire of 1,000 cannons. When the bombardment ceased, we thought we had survived. Then we saw the gray masses advancing. There was no end. They just kept coming. The first German line disintegrates in hours, but this is only the prelude. General Ivan Chernyakhovsky, at 38, the youngest front commander of the Red Army, directs the 3rd Belarusian Front against Vitebsk. His objective is one of Hitler's fortresses. The city must be held regardless of cost. Inside are 35,000 German soldiers of the 3rd Panzer Army. Chernyakhovsky doesn't attack the city directly. Instead, his forces surround it, cutting off all escape routes. It's a double envelopment maneuver executed with surgical precision. Within 72 hours, Vitebsk is completely encircled. General Georg Pfeiffer, commander of the garrison, requests permission to withdraw. Hitler's response is predictable. Vitebsk will be held, not one step back. Pfeiffer attempts to break the encirclement with 20,000 men. It's a massacre. T-34 tanks and Ilyushin IL-2 Sturmovix shred the German column. Only 8,000 men manage to escape. The rest die or are captured. Vitebsk falls on July 27th. It's only the beginning. The collapse of the center. To the south, General Konstantin Rakovsky executes the most ambitious part of Bagration. His first Belarusian front must cross the Pripyat marshes, terrain the Germans consider impassable for armored forces. Rakovsky is meticulous. For weeks, his engineers have built secret roads through the marshes, reinforced with logs and hidden under vegetation. When his tanks advance, the Germans are completely surprised. The objective is Babrusk, another fortress with 40,000 defenders from the German Ninth Army. Rakovsky wastes no time. His forces surround the city from 2 directions, creating an airtight pocket. General Hans Jordan, commander of the Ninth Army, sees the disaster unfolding. He requests permission to evacuate Babrusk. Hitler refuses. Bush, the Army Group commander, doesn't have the courage to disobey. On June 27th, Soviet tanks close the trap. Inside the pocket, 40,000 German soldiers fight to survive. The Luftwaffe attempts to drop supplies, but Soviet fighters dominate the sky. Yak-9s and La-5s shoot down Ju-52 transports as if they were practice targets. Sergeant Gunter Koschorek, trapped in the pocket, writes, "There's no food, no ammunition, no hope. The Russians are systematically crushing us. This isn't a battle, it's an execution." On June 29th, Babrusk falls. Of the 40,000 defenders, only 15,000 escape. The German Ninth Army ceases to exist as a fighting force. But the most devastating blow is yet to come. The German Fourth Army, commanded by General Kurt von Tippelisk, who replaced Heinrici, is positioned around Mogilev. It's the strongest formation of Army Group Center. 165,000 men, well-equipped and with experienced veterans. The Soviets launched 2 complete fronts against them, the 2nd and 3rd Belarusian fronts. It's a hammer and anvil of epic proportions. Von Tippelisk is a competent commander. He sees the danger and requests permission to withdraw to better defensive positions. Hitler, predictably, refuses. Bush, the Army Group commander, doesn't have the courage to disobey. On June 28th, the Soviet pincers close around Minsk, the capital of Belarus. Trapped inside the pocket are 105,000 German soldiers of the Fourth Army. It's the largest pocket since Stalingrad. Lieutenant General Vincenz Müller, commander of the 12th Corps, finds himself in de facto command of the trapped forces. Müller is an old-school Prussian officer, not a Nazi. He assesses the situation with professional coldness. There's no way to break the encirclement. No supplies, no reinforcements, no hope. For a week, the trapped Germans fight desperately. They attempt to break the encirclement in multiple directions. Each attempt is repelled with massive losses. Soviet tanks and artillery turn each escape attempt into carnage. Hitler reacts. On June 28th, 5 days after the start of Bagration, Hitler finally comprehends the magnitude of the disaster. He dismisses Marshal Busch and replaces him with Field Marshal Walter Model, known as the Führer's fireman for his ability to stabilize desperate situations. Model arrives at the front and assesses the situation. His conclusion is brutal. Army Group Center has ceased to exist as a coherent force. I need divisions, many divisions. But there are no divisions available. In Normandy, the Western Allies are pressing. In Italy, Rome has just fallen. In the Balkans, partisans are active. Germany is fighting on all fronts simultaneously. Model does the only thing he can. He orders strategic retreats, abandons Hitler's fortresses, and tries to form a new defensive line. It's too little, too late. The Soviets give no respite. Zhukov and Vasilevsky have planned Bagration in phases. Each time the Germans try to stabilize a line, a new Soviet blow breaks it. On July 4th, Bagramyan's first Baltic front captures Polotsk. On July 13th, Vilna falls to Chernyakhovsky. On July 16th, Rokossovsky takes Grodno. Cities fall like dominoes. 3. Operational depth. Bagration wasn't a single battle, but a series of coordinated operations designed to destroy the enemy in depth, not just push them back. 4. Rapid exploitation. When breaches opened, the Soviets exploited them immediately with mobile forces, giving the enemy no time to recover. 5. Combined arms coordination. Infantry, tanks, artillery, and aviation worked together with a synchronization that would have been impossible in 1941. General Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Troops, will write after the war, Bagration demonstrated that the Russians had surpassed the Germans in operational art. They had been our students. Now they were our masters. The human factor. Behind the statistics are human stories. Soldier Vasily Grossman, Soviet war correspondent, accompanies the advance. He describes the liberation of Belarus. Villagers emerge from the forests where they've hidden for 3 years. They're skeletal, traumatized. Many cry when they see our tanks, not from joy, but from relief. The hell is over. But Grossman also sees the dark side. He describes looting, rapes, summary executions of real or imagined collaborators. Liberation is brutal and chaotic. On the German side, Lieutenant Popst, who survived the initial encirclement, writes in his diary, "We've retreated 600 kilometers in 5 weeks. Every day we lose more men. Every day the situation worsens. We no longer fight for victory. We fight to survive one more day." Popst will die in January 1945, defending East Prussia against the same army that defeated him in Belarus. Bagration versus Normandy. A comparison is inevitable. On June 6, 1944, the Western Allies landed in Normandy. On June 23, The Soviets launched Bagration. Which was more important? The numbers speak for themselves. Normandy, June 6th to August 25th. 425,000 German casualties, 210,000 Western Allied casualties. Bagration, June 23rd to August 19th. 450,000 German casualties, 770,000 Soviet casualties. Bagration destroyed more German forces in less time. It advanced more territory, and it had more immediate strategic consequences. But Normandy opened the second front that Stalin had demanded for years. It forced Germany to fight on two major fronts simultaneously, something no nation can sustain indefinitely. The truth is that both operations were complementary. Together, they sealed the fate of Nazi Germany. Hitler could no longer win. He could only choose how to lose.